Hello there. My name is Faithful Esther Abahomwangi, and I'm the Education USA advisor at the US Embassy in Kigali. So today we're bringing to you a pre-departure orientation with my colleague who I'm going to welcome to introduce herself. Yes?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiana Needle. I am currently an intern at US Embassy Kigali, and I am also an American, and I'm currently a graduate student. So I've gone to college and graduate school, lots of higher ed experience.
Thank you so much, Kiana. So before we get started in our presentation, I'm going to talk about Education USA. What is Education USA? So Education USA is a US Department of State network that is in over 175 countries and territories and with more than 430 student advising centers. Education USA promotes higher education to students all over the world by providing accurate, current, and comprehensive information on accredited post-secondary institutions. Education USA is your official source on higher education in the US. So now that we know that, we are going to go ahead and talk about the fifth step to US study, which is preparation for your departure. So you've worked hard this whole time, steps 1 through 4, and you're finally ready to get on a plane and go to the US for your study. What are some of the things for you to keep in consideration? So we made a small outline here that we're going to cover in depth in this presentation. And some of the things we'll be covering are things like travel, academics, health insurance, social life, and that kind of thing. So let's get started with travel. So obviously, before you get to the US, you need to pack your bags, and that is a part of your travel. So we're going to look at how many bags can you take and what is the weight and what can you take in the bags. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that for most standard airlines, you are only allowed 2 suitcases for check-in, and these suitcases cannot be more than 23 kilograms each, which is about 50 pounds. And if you happen to have a lot of luggage and want to take an extra suitcase with you, you have to first of all ask the airline if they're going to allow you to do that. And even if they say yes, usually you still have to stay within the weight limits and you have to pay quite expensively for an extra bag. So it's highly recommended not to take more than the standard 2 suitcases. And how about for your carry-on luggage? So most airlines, again, most standard airlines will allow you to take just 1 extra luggage on the plane, which cannot be more than 10 kilograms, and that is about 21 pounds. Again, best to check with your airline what the weight limit is, because some airlines will tell you it cannot be more than 7 kilograms. So better safe than sorry to always confirm that. And what can you take in your bags? Your laptop. Your laptop, you probably want to take it in your hand luggage because it's just safer that way. And again, some airlines will allow you to take an extra bag just for the laptop bag, maybe a laptop backpack, and then the small suitcase that is your hand luggage. And some may not. Some may want you to put your laptop in the same hand luggage. So it's always best to confirm with the airline. Now, other things you want to take in your hand luggage is maybe an extra change of clothes, just in case, in the worst case scenario, your bags get lost. At least you have an extra change of clothes. You want to take a toothbrush in there. If you're taking any toothpaste, make sure it's a small travel size. If you want to take things like sanitizer, it has to be something very small because no liquids are allowed. A hand lotion has to be very small. You can take a water bottle with you, but you cannot put any water in it because they'll make you pour it out. So if you came from home with some juice in that bottle or some Fanta, you cannot take it on the plane with you in your hand luggage. You'll have to pour it out. You're allowed to take dry snacks. For example, you can take an apple or some cookies. That is fine, but you really don't have to because you'll have food on the plane. So that is that in regard to what to pack in your hand luggage. How about your suitcases? Some of the things you want to not forget in your suitcases are things like your traditional outfit. So for example, here in Rwanda, that is your mushanana. You probably don't want to forget your mushanana or some kitenge outfits, because most of the times in school, you'll have things like culture nights or international student nights where you proudly get to wear something that represents your heritage. So those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about. Oh, and one more thing. Since you're going to be away for quite a long time, you are probably going to get homesick and miss some of the food from here that you're not going to easily get in the US. So for example, if you love agasha juice, You're probably not going to find it in the US. It's okay to pack maybe 1 bottle of your agasha juice in your check-in bags, or some akabanga or some isombe. You probably want to take the pounded packaged isombe or your ugari flour, because you're probably not going to find it in the US. Obviously, you don't want to pack your entire suitcase with food, because that won't be acceptable. But you can take 1 or 2 things here and there that will help you remember home. Now, when you get to, again, still a part of travel are your documents. You always want to make sure your passport, your I-20, those school documents are always with you at all times and packed in your hand luggage or in your backpack or in that purse, because you do not want to get into any frustrations of, oh my gosh, I packed this in the check-in bags and now how am I going to travel? Because that will just make the start of your journey not awesome at all. So make sure you have your passport, your I-20 in your purse or your check-in bag or your hand luggage at all times. If you go to the restroom, if you go sit in a restaurant, make sure that bag is with you at all times. You do not want to lose your identification. Now, for the passport, you can have your F1 I-20, your F1 visa stamped into your passport that has less than 6 months to expiration dates. Maybe your passport has only 1 month before it expires. The embassy can still stamp that visa in such a passport. However, you cannot travel to the US. You will not be allowed in the US when you have a passport that's less than 6 months to expiration. So please check that. And if you're in that situation, you have a visa in one passport that has maybe 1 month to expiration, make sure you still renew your passport, because now in that case, you'll travel with 2 passports, because you have to have definitely more than 6 months to expiration. And another thing, when you're checking in your bags, ask the person who is checking them in, where are you going to pick them up? Are they going to be checked into their final destination in the US? Or in the event that you have a layover and you're going to be in transit at some point, you have to get your bags and check them in again. So make sure you confirm that. Most airlines will check in your bags to the final destination, but better safe than sorry to always confirm that. Then how are you going to dress up for your travel? You want to, even if it's the summer, it can be really chilly on the plane, especially if you're not used to the AC, the air conditioning. You want to take maybe an extra scarf or a pair of socks or a jacket with you, because even though most airlines will give you a blanket and a pair of socks, maybe not all will do. So better safe than sorry to have your own. And then again, still on traveling, you want to travel in something that's very comfortable, maybe a pair of jeans or sweats, because that is going to be something that is going to be comfortable for you to travel on a long journey. So make sure you keep that in mind. And how about food? What are you going to do when you get hungry in the plane? So feel free to eat anything that's served to you, the breakfast meals, the lunch meals, because you're not going to pay any extra money for it. It's all a part of your ticket pricing. So if they bring food by, don't be shy, just enjoy your meals. However, what are you going to do in the event that you're thirsty and it's not time for meals? It's not breakfast time, it's not lunch time, but you may be really thirsty or you're really hungry. What are you going to do? So feel free to call up one of the flight attendants and ask them for that glass of water or that glass of juice. It's perfectly fine. Now, when you're in transit, if you happen to maybe travel from here to the US and you have to stop over in Amsterdam and you're not sure how to get to your gate for the next flight, don't pretend to be a know-it-all and then miss your flight. Take advantage of the airport staff and just ask them. Don't be shy. Ask them, I need help to get to my gate. How do I find gate Z? Or how do I get to gate D? Don't be shy. Just ask them. Now, when you get to the airport, now we've arrived in the US and you go into the airport, you're going to go through immigration. They're going to be different queues. Make sure you read the signs, because they're different queues for American citizens and international students, non-American citizens. So if you're not an American citizen, you'll have to make sure you know you're queuing in the right queue. And then once you get there, you'll definitely have to have your passport and your I-20 on you, very handy. You need to know where you're going. Make sure before you even travel, you ask the school, what is the airport pickup arrangement? Are they going to send you airport pickup and pick you up from the airport, or do you have to arrange your own airport pickup? Maybe you need to get an airport taxi. So make sure you find that out before you even travel to begin with. Now, sometimes in the airports, they might pick you out at random for an extra security check or to ask you questions. If you happen to be that person who's been randomly picked upon for that extra security check, just be calm. Don't be alarmed, stay confident. It's just standard procedure. They tend to, randomly pick out people and, ask, extra questions. It's not anything personal. They're just doing the job. So be calm and, just confidently and calmly answer the questions they're asking. If they want to check your bags, just go through the process. It's not a big deal. It shouldn't alarm you. Now, that is that for my presentation. I'm going to invite my colleague Kiana, if there's anything she'd like to add to that, she's welcome to do that and carry on with the presentation. Thanks, Kiana. You're welcome.
So something to keep in mind is that the weather in the US will be very different from what you're used to. And this could be also different depending on what part of the United States you are in. The south part of the US is really warm. It gets very hot. In the southeast, it's really hot and humid, so it feels very sticky. In the north, we get all 4 seasons, so warm summers, falls, but also cold winters. So something to consider as you pack clothes and also as you think about how you'll spend your money in the US is the weather. When you come to the US, it's okay if you don't have all of the clothing for all of the seasons. But you should keep in mind that you will have to buy a winter coat. I recommend asking help from locals and also the International Center. Every school has a department specifically to help international students like you. And those people can give you advice on when and what kinds of clothes you need to buy for the different seasons. Also, some advice, don't be like me and buy your winter coat before it's winter. You don't want to be really, really cold and then spend too much money on something just because you are desperate. So look at the weather of where your school will be before you go and think about what should I bring and what will I need to buy when I get there. Another part that can be different in US schools is academics and grading. So there are letter grades and numbers, and in the US, an A is excellent, a B is great, it's good, a C is just okay. Anything below a C can be like a trouble grade. D's, that depends on the school. Some schools will say a D is a passing grade, so 60 or above. Other schools might want you to get higher grades, so they might say you have to have a C or above. So that is something to check with your advisor, with the academic center, to find out how good of grades you need to get. So that way you can, keep continuing in your classes and make sure you get your degree on time. So you might be thinking now, oh my goodness, I have to get good grades. How will I do that? Well, there are many resources available to you. As I said, the International Center, they will also have people who can give you advice on transitioning to US academics or where to get help. There's also an academic center where there will be tutors, people who can help you with writing, who can look over your essays. The library in your school will have librarians who can help you with research and finding information. In addition, I recommend starting study groups. So work with your classmates to study together, and that's a great way to get help on something you don't know, or maybe you're good at something, but explaining it will help you understand ideas better. It's also, having study groups is also useful to kind of set a schedule for when to work. American classes will usually meet 2, maybe 3 times a week, but your professors will expect you to put in as much time or more outside of class. So scheduling times to do that work will be really good so you can keep up. And something else to use is office hours. All of your teachers have to have office hours, and those are set times every week where the professor sits in their office and they are just waiting for you to come ask questions. So office hours, if you have questions about class, maybe there's a specific problem you don't understand, questions about homework, or you really like the subject and you want to know more, or you think, this is a really interesting subject, what jobs could I get? All of those things are things you can talk to your professor about in office hours. And they are happy to talk and give advice about school, about jobs, about life and living in the US. So don't be shy about going to office hours. That's a great way to get help, to just learn more, and to make connections. Maybe the professor you go to office hours for becomes someone who will write you letters of recommendation or help you find work. So lots of resources, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Another place where you will get lots of help is career services or the career center. Every school has this department, and it's a place to help you learn about finding jobs, learning about what jobs there are, and to prepare for them. Their schools will have workshops, or you can have one-on-one meetings to go over your resume and make sure it's properly formatted for American businesses. They will have career fairs where companies will come to the school and tell you about what jobs they have. And you can also have individual meetings with the advisors in the Career Center. And this can be, again, maybe you want help with a specific job application or a document, or you want to know what kinds of jobs exist in the world and how to find out about them. They are happy to help you, even if you are from the very beginning at school. So all stages of your school career, they will help you. And they also know about specific rules for international students working in the US or abroad.
And talking about international students working abroad, I'm going to add on to what Kiana is saying. So there's what they call OPT, which is the Optional Professional Training Program for international students. And with OPT, it gives you the opportunity to work in the US after you graduate to gain work experience before you come back home. So if you're in a STEM program, OPT for you will be up to 2 years maximum. And if you're in a non-STEM program, you have 1 year for OPT. So feel free to take advantage of that opportunity. Reach out to your career center and tell them, I'm interested in doing OPT and gaining work experience before I go back home. However, if you want to take that route, this is something you need to start working on really, really early, so that by the time you're graduating, you land hitting the ground and running into the job that you want to gain experience in.
And the last part of school that is just as important is social life. You're not just here, classes are important, but it's also important to have fun and make friends, to de-stress, and maybe meet people who will be your best friends for life, or who can help you find work or jobs in the future. At the beginning of the school year, there will be a club or an organization fair where all of the student groups will meet and tell you about what they do and how you can join. So that's definitely go to the org fair and learn and sign up for things. And that can be things you are already interested in, things you do, but also don't be afraid to try new things. Student clubs they understand that people haven't done things before, and so they're willing to teach you, and they just really want you to join and have fun. There's lots of different kinds of organizations. There are crafting groups if you want to knit. There are singing groups. There are even casual sports. So aside from the official school sports, there will also be clubs where people just meet and play for fun. Another part of social life is, as Faithful mentioned earlier, culture nights or heritage nights where people can perform, or maybe it's a dance, maybe it's a song or a poem, something that is important to you and your heritage. And of course, there's also parties. I'm not going to tell you not to go to parties because that would be boring. Just again, there's so much to do at college and so many events that the most important thing is to, try new things and go out there, but you don't have to go to everything. It's not possible to do all of the events and all of the clubs. So just make sure that you are not trying to do too much so that you can, still have time for school and for, meeting with career services and just hanging out with your friends. Also for parties, definitely try to go with friends, stay safe and have a good time. Speaking of friends, another thing to remember is that your roommate or roommates can often be a friend for life. Now, of course, it doesn't always happen, but you can still it's important to have a good relationship with your roommate. And one way to do that is to, when you first move in and you first meet, have a conversation about what kinds of rules and lifestyles you want to have. Maybe you decide when are you going to have lights out in your room? When do you want to have quiet hours? Are you okay with inviting people over? Just setting some basic rules like that so you know what to expect and how to behave with one another will really help you get along. And that way, even if you don't become best friends, you'll still have a good living experience.
And to be a friend, if you want to have a friend, be a friend first. So be friendly to your roommates. Yeah. So in that regard, we're going to now move on and talk about culture shock. What is culture shock? So culture shock is basically, in a nutshell, I'll say, being immersed in a new culture, which you're absolutely not used to. And so you find that the things that they do in that culture are frustrating, shocking, or interesting, just different. So what are some of the things that I can talk about? Like your professors. The professors in the US will tend to be more friendly than professors here, who tend to be way more strict. So take advantage of that and actually befriend your professor, because like Kiana mentioned earlier, these could be the people who write you those recommendation letters at a time that you need. And it's just great when you have a good relationship with your professor. And you'll find out that the classes too tend to be way more casual, more discussion type than many of the classes tend to be here in Rwanda. Now, I'll talk about some of the things that you might find quite different, like staring. Staring in Rwanda is perceived as normal, but in the US, please do not stare. Do not stare. It's going to be perceived as being rude. And in some cases, somebody could file a discipline infraction saying they felt harassed by how you were staring at them. So please do not do that. And some taboo topics to think about. I'm going to let Kiana talk more about this, but some of the things are things like politics. Do not ask somebody what political party they belong to. That's a very prickly subject. Or things like weights. I know here in Rwanda, it's normal to say, oh, did you gain weight? Or, oh, you lost weight, but please don't go there in the US. It could be taken as being rude and intruding in somebody's personal space. But I'll let Kiana maybe mention a thing or two extra in that regard.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you've listed. Something else to maybe not bring up in conversation is money. People are uncomfortable talking about how much money they have, or if they're receiving money from school, like scholarships. If someone else brings it up and they want to talk about it, then that's fine. But it's not something to go around asking, oh, how much money do your parents make? Or how much money do you have? Because it can make people feel uncomfortable.
Thank you so much, Kiana. And in regard to money, we are going to actually talk about your own money management in school. So you'll notice that in the US, and like here in Rwanda, there tend to be way more many sales. Buy two, get three free, buy one, get one free. So many sales, Black Friday. So don't fall for all of it and just end up in a shopping spree and use up all your money, especially if you are on a tight student budget. Be very mindful of buy the things you actually need, and even for your wants, be very plan that very well. Don't just go on an entire shopping spree. Now you'll notice that once you get to the US for the first time, especially, you tend to calculate the money all the time. And what I mean by that is, for example, you went to a store and you wanted to get 5 liters of milk, and you realize that, oh my gosh, in Rwanda, I would have only paid 2,000 francs for this milk. And here it's 5,000 francs. I'm just giving a random number. You can't be doing that all the time. You have to get to a place where you have a mindset shift and understand you're in a new culture, and even the money is used differently. It's of different value, because otherwise what's going to happen, you're not going to buy any food and you're going to starve, and you're not going to buy any clothes and you're going to go cold in the winter because you don't want to buy a jacket thinking I would have bought it much more affordable in Rwanda. So have that mindset shift. Now, for girls, those who like to braid your hair all the time, what you would have probably spent only $30 here in Rwanda is going to cost you about $200 for braiding that hair. So you probably don't want to be spending that much, especially if you're on a student budget. So I'd highly recommend take advantage of YouTube and learn to do your own hair. And same applies for the guys. If you like to go to the barber all the time, a haircut in the US is on average $30, which you'd have paid like $1 here, or $3 at most. So you probably don't want to do that. Spending $30 maybe every 2 weeks. So it's best to just buy your own shaver, use YouTube and learn how to shave your own hair, and make your student budget smile. Now, health insurance. You absolutely need health insurance, but you need to find out from your school, are they going to provide health insurance for you? Like, are they going to help you figure that out? Or do you have to find and get your own health insurance externally? Now, once you have your health insurance, please use it because you're paying for it. So find out what your health insurance is going to cover and actually take advantage of that. Now, what is going to happen in the worst case scenario that you get a grave illness that requires you to take a prolonged period of time out of school, something they call a medical leave of absence? Well, if that happens, it's unfortunate, but there are specific procedures you have to follow. And if you do not follow them, you will get in trouble and be out of status as an international student, which you definitely don't want to do. So what are the procedures? So first of all, you need to approach the Office of International Students and speak to an advisor there, let them know about the situation, and also the academic department before you decide to drop any classes or any courses. Now, once you've dealt with the Office of International Students and the academic department, now you will need a letter from a certified doctor that shows that, yes, this student X needs to take this medical leave of absence, and they have to specify for what semester, what period of time, and they also have to show that they recommend this student to take the medical leave of absence in the US or not necessarily in the US. Because with the medical leave of absence, you have the option of just coming back home for your medical treatment. But if you choose to stay in the US, that is something that has to be shown on that letter from the doctor. Now, once you're in whatever program that you're in, whether it's the PhD level, a master's program, an undergraduate program, any program level has a maximum of up to 12 months of medical leave of absence. So for example, if you're in an undergrad program of 4 years, you can only have up to a total of 12 months during that duration of your four-year college period. You can only take up to 12 months of medical leave of absence. If you're in a 2-year master's degree program, again, you can only have up to 12 months maximum. And if you're in a PhD program of however many years, the maximum you can take is 12 months of medical leave of absence. So please, if that ever happens to you, in the worst case scenario, make sure you remember to first approach the Office of International Students and the academic department before you drop any classes. And then you'll definitely need that letter from a certified doctor, not just any doctor, showing what specific semester, if they recommend you staying in the US for treatments, and that you actually do need to take this medical leave of absence. Now, that's that for our presentation. Unless Kiana has something she would like to add, okay. So if she doesn't have anything she would like to add, that's it for our presentation on preparing for your departure. That's my contact information. And the email is kigali@educationusa.org. That's the phone number you can reach us at, and the website. Thank you so much for listening to us. Goodbye.